Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, panel, for being with us this morning. And let me start with Director Gabbard. You've heard from Mr. Stubbe, you've heard from Admiral Jackson, you've heard from Ms. Tenney, all this aspect of who we've encountered at our borders, north and south, and during the Biden administration with the open border that has been overly discussed
Ladies
today.
and gentlemen, this is one of those moments where the truth slips out in plain sight. A congressional hearing, supposed to be routine. But what we actually got, a clear admission of failure, weak leadership in the past, and a glimpse of America getting back on track. And you better believe we're going to break it all down.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, panel, for being with us this morning. And let me start with Director Gabbard. You've heard from Mr. Stubbe, you've heard from Admiral Jackson, you've heard from Ms. Tenney, all this aspect of who we've encountered at our borders, north and south, and during the Biden administration with the open border that has been overly discussed today at length. There's this known and suspected terrorists, and I want to congratulate the Trump administration for getting, I think, 1,300 people identified out of the country under your 13 months, so congratulations on that. But for 3 years, in both classified and unclassified sessions here, I've raised this issue that we don't have the data and we don't track it in a fused way, meaning Border Patrol, TSA, FBI and follow-up, DOJ and prosecutions. And we don't really have that at our fingertips for oversight purposes. And I asked you at last year's Worldwide Threats, would you commit to helping us achieve, as the ODNI, that fused data? You agreed, but it was only 3 days ago I got that commitment from you in writing. So let me ask you again, can you help drive that process across the bureaucracy to get that regularly provided to the intelligence committees?
Sir, thank you for the follow-up on that. We have continued to work to improve that consolidated use of systems that will better help us identify who is in our country, who are known or suspected terrorists, to include those who are members or leaders of cartels and gangs and drug traffickers. And we're continuing to pursue that, particularly with the Department of State and their screening and vetting practices, as well as the Department of Homeland Security's. I will say that there has been a drastic improvement in our own screening and vetting systems, and that coordination is occurring, but there are still some silos that need to be broken down.
Also, in follow-up to the discussion today, I heard my friend from California, Mr. Barra, assert that President Trump's action in Epic Fury was unconstitutional. Do you think it was unconstitutional, the decision taken by the president?
That's a legal question, sir, that I believe has been asked and answered by the White House counsel.
But don't you think in Article 2, power under the War Powers Act, the president has the right to defend American interest, allied interest?
He does.
And he can do that for 60 days. And did the president and you consult with the Gang of Eight in Congress before the president took military operations?
My understanding is the Secretary of State fulfilled that responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's clear. I don't recall President Obama, for example, declaring war for 7 months of operations in Libya. So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy here as we try to defend American interests. Mr. Klein asked you about and made a good comment, I thought, about, and he talked to Director Patel about this, on this issue of Winter Shield and doing a better job of coordinating offensive and defensive cyber here in the homeland. And I think that's another place, Director, where I think you should play an outsized role to coordinate, again, this issue of all operations. I'm very concerned that we don't have a fused, I'm going to use that word again, civil defense posture on cyber defense because we're too compartmentalized. We're too siloed between who's with the military and not with the military, who's got classifications and who doesn't. Would you work with me on trying to design a way for our governors, our private sector, the FBI to work better on countering state actors in our private sector?
Yes, sir. I would look forward to working with you on that. And we'll just comment, this would have to be done in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security and CISA, given their statutory responsibilities The integration and coordination with the private sector remains one of the biggest imperatives, but also in some cases challenges for folks who choose not to work with the U.S. government.
I agree. I sit on the CISA, subcommittee here, and I'm very concerned about it. And I think our whole committee's been concerned about the assessment we have on offensive cyber, so we look forward to that. Finally, Director Ratcliffe, thanks for you being here, and it's wonderful to see you. Thanks for our decade of friendship. I want to say that I've traveled significantly with the chairman to Latin America, and I want to say your stations throughout the Western Hemisphere are doing an outstanding job. Would you say that we're back on track countering great power rivals in the Western Hemisphere?
I would. Thank you for the compliments for the workforce that I'm privileged to lead. And I do think the President's policies in making the Western Hemisphere a priority are really clear. Obviously, the success of Operation Absolute Resolve. It's funny, Congressman, no one's talking about Venezuela because things are going so well in Venezuela. But it really shows the commitment that the President has to taking care of business for American interests in our own hemisphere. And it's not limited to Venezuela, it's throughout Central and South America. And I think that you'll continue to see continued progress with respect to that.
Thank you, and I thank all of you for your service to your country, and I yield back.
Mr. Hill. So we've got French Hill questioning
Chairman. Thank you,
intelligence
panel,
officials,
for being with us
including
this morning.
Tulsi
And,
Gabbard and John Ratcliffe.
Let me start with Director
Right from the
Gabbard.
start,
You've heard
Hill
from
doesn't
Mr.
hold back.
Stubbe. You've heard
He
from
brings up
Admiral
something
Jackson.
the media
You've heard
loves
from
to
Ms. Tenney.
downplay.
All this
The border
aspect
crisis.
of
Not
who
just
we've
illegal
encountered
immigration,
at our
but
borders,
something
north
far
and
more
south.
serious.
And during the Biden administration,
Back
with
in
the
index
open
pointing
border that
right
has been
known
overly
and suspected
discussed today
terrorists
at length,
entering the United States.
There's
Let
this
that sink in.
known
Hill
and
points
suspected
directly
terrorists,
at the
and I want to
elephant in the
congratulate
room,
the Trump
the
administration for
policies
getting, I
under
think,
Joe Biden.
1,300
He
people
calls it what
identified
many
out of the
Americans have been
country
saying
under
for
your
years.
13
Back
months,
in
so
index pointing right,
congratulations on
an
that.
open border
But for
situation.
3 years,
and here's the part
in
that
both
should
classified and
alarm
unclassified
every
sessions
citizen.
here, I've raised this
For
issue that
3
we
years,
don't have
Congress
the data
didn't even
and we
have
don't
proper
track
data
it in a
tracking.
fused
Think about that.
way.
Astra's Border Patrol,
Border Patrol,
didn't fully coordinate
TSA,
with the FBI.
FBI and
Astra's
follow-up,
TSA
DOJ
wasn't
and
fully
prosecutions.
integrated.
And we don't
Astra's
really have
DOJ
that at
prosecutions
our fingertips
weren't
for
clearly
oversight
tracked.
purposes.
No unified
And
system.
I asked you
no
last
clear
year's
oversight.
worldwide threats.
That's not just
would you commit
incompetence.
to
Back in index pointing
helping
right.
us
That's a
achieve
national
as the
security
ODNI
risk.
that
Now
fused
contrast
data
that
you
with what Hill
agreed,
highlighted.
but it was only
Under
3 days
Donald
ago I got
Trump's
that
administration,
commitment
back
from
in
you
index
writing.
pointing right
So
one,
let me ask you
300
again, can you help
individuals
drive
identified
that
as potential
process
threats
across
were
the
removed from the
bureaucracy
country
to get
in
that
just 13
regularly
months.
provided
That's
to
not
the
rhetoric.
intelligence committees?
That's action. That's what
Sir,
happens
thank you for
when
the follow-up
leadership
on that. We have
prioritizes American
continued
safety
to work
first.
to improve
One word kept
that
coming up again
consolidated
and again in this hearing. Back in
use
index
of
pointing
systems
right, silos.
that will better help us
And this is
identify
huge.
who is
Even
in
Gabbard
our
admitted it.
country, who
Yes,
are known or suspected
improvements have been
terrorists, to
made.
include
But the
those who are
system
members or
is
leaders
still
of
fragmented.
cartels and gangs
Different
and drug
agencies
traffickers.
working separately,
And we're
not sharing
continuing
critical
to
intelligence
we're
fast
continuing to
enough.
pursue that.
Let me be clear.
Particularly
Back
with
in
the
index
Department
pointing
of
right,
State
in today's
and their
world,
screening
that's
and vetting
unacceptable.
practices, as well
We're
as the
dealing with
Department of Homeland
cartels,
Security.
terrorist networks, cyber
I will say
warfare.
that there has
And
been
our
a
own system
drastic
is still
improvement
stuck
in
in
our own
bureaucratic
screening
gridlock.
and vetting
That's
systems,
exactly
and
how
that coordination
threats
is
slip through the
occurring.
cracks.
But
Then
there are still
things get
some
even more
silos that need to be
interesting.
broken down.
Hill pushes back against criticism
Also,
of
in
Trump's
follow-up to the
military
discussion
decisions,
today, I heard
specifically
my friend
epic
from California,
fury.
Mr. Barrow,
He raises a
assert
key
that,
point. Back-end index
President
pointing
Trump's
right, the
action
president
in
has
epic
authority
fury was
under Article 2
unconstitutional.
in
Do
the
you
War
think it was
Powers Act.
unconstitutional, the
And here's where the
decision taken by the
hypocrisy
president?
gets exposed. Hill brings up
That's
Barack
a legal
Obama
question, sir, that
and the Libya
I believe has been
operations.
asked and answered
No
by
formal
the
declaration
White
of
House
war.
counsel.
Yet somehow,
But don't you think in
that wasn't
Article 2
controversial.
power in the War
But when
Powers Act,
Trump
the
acts to
president has the
defend
right
American
to defend
interests,
American interests,
suddenly it's
allied interests,
unconstitutional?
and he can do that
Come
for
on.
60
Back
days.
in index
And
pointing
did
right,
the
the double
president,
standard is
and
obvious.
You consult
Now,
with the
this
Gang
part
of
should
8 in Congress
concern
before the
everyone,
president
not
took
just
military
Americans.
operations.
Hill shifts to cyber defense.
My understanding is the Secretary
And
of
what he
State
describes is
fulfilled
honestly
that
alarming.
responsibility.
Back in
I think
index
that's
pointing
clear.
right,
I don't
the
recall
U.S.
President
does not have a fully unified
Obama,
cyber
for
defense
example,
posture.
declaring
Asterisk
war
military
for 7 months
versus
of operations in
civilian
Libya. So I
systems
think there's
divided.
a lot of hypocrisy
Asterisk
here
classified
as we try
versus
to defend
non-classified
American interests.
gaps. Asterisk private sector not fully integrated. In a
Mr.
world
Klein
where
asked
countries
you
like
about, and made a
China
good
and
comment,
Russia
I thought,
operate
about,
with
and
centralized
talked
cyber
to Director
strategies,
Patel about
we're
this.
still fragmented? That's a
On,
serious vulnerability. To her
this
credit,
issue of winter
Gabbard
shield
agrees to
and
work on
doing a better
fixing
job
this.
of
But
coordinating
let's be honest,
offensive and
back-end index pointing
defensive
right,
cyber
this should have been done
here in the
years ago.
homeland.
Another key
And I think
point,
that's another
the
place,
private
Director,
sector.
where I think you should
Hill
play an outsized
emphasizes
role
something
to
critical.
coordinate again
Back-end
this
index
issue
pointing
of
right
all,
American companies are
operations.
now
I'm very
frontlines
concerned
in
that we
cyber
don't
warfare.
have a fuse.
And yet,
I'm going to use that
coordination
word again.
between
Civil
asterisk
defense
government,
posture
asterisk private sector,
on
asterisk
cyber
state
defense
leadership
because we're too
is still
compartmentalized.
inconsistent. That's a
We're too
major gap
siloed between
because modern
who's with the
warfare
military
isn't
and not
just
with the
tanks
military,
and
who's
missiles anymore.
got classifications
Back-end index
and who
pointing
doesn't.
right
Would
is
you
data,
work with me
infrastructure,
on trying to
and digital
design
systems.
a way
Now
for
we get to
our
the part that
governors,
really
our
stands
private
out.
sector,
Hill turns
the
to
FBI
CIA
to work
Director
better
Ratcliffe
on
and gives strong
countering
praise.
state
He
actors
says
in our
intelligence
private
operations
sector.
across.
Yes, sir.
Asterisk
I
Latin
would look forward to
America,
working with you
asterisk
on that.
Central America,
And we'll just
asterisk
comment this
South
would have to be
America
done in
are doing
conjunction with
an
the Department of
outstanding
Homeland
job.
Security and CISA,
Ratcliffe
given their
confirms something
statutory
important.
responsibilities.
Back-end index pointing
The
right,
integration and
Western
coordination with the
Hemisphere
private
is
sector
now a
remains one of
priority
the
again.
biggest imperatives,
Ratcliffe even
but
makes
also
an
in some
interesting
cases
remark
challenges
about Venezuela,
for folks who
saying no one is
choose not
talking
to
about it
work with the
because
U.S. government.
things are going
I agree. I sit
well.
on the CISA
Now, whether you agree with that or
subcommittee
not,
here, I'm
the
very,
message is clear.
concerned about it.
Back-end
I think
index
our whole
pointing right,
committee's
the
been
U.S.
concerned about
is
the assessment we
reasserting
have on
influence
offensive
in its
cyber,
own
so we look
hemisphere.
forward to that.
And that matters.
Finally,
because for
Director
too long,
Ratcliffe, thanks
global
for
rivals have
you
been
being here, and it's
expanding
wonderful to see you.
influence
Thanks
right
for
in
our
America's
decade
backyard.
of friendship.
So what's the big
I want
picture
to say
here?
that I've traveled
This hearing
significantly
revealed
with the
three
chairman
major
of Latin
truths.
America, and I want to say
One,
your stations
the border crisis
throughout
created
the
real
Western Hemisphere
national
doing an
security
outstanding
risks.
job. Would
Two,
you say that we're
government
back on track
fragmentation
countering
has weakened defense
great power
systems.
rivals in the Western
Three,
Hemisphere?
there's now a push to restore
I would. Thank you
strength
for the
and
compliments
coordination.
for the
And from a
workforce
patriotic perspective,
that I'm
here's
privileged
the
to
bottom
lead.
line.
And I do
Back-end
think,
index pointing right America
the president's
is strongest
policies in
when it is
making
secure,
the
coordinated,
Western Hemisphere
and unapologetic
a priority
about
of
defending
really
its interests.
clear.
Not
Obviously,
divided,
the
not
success of
bureaucratically
Operation
paralyzed,
Absolute
not
Resolve.
reactive, but
It's funny,
proactive.
Congressman.
If you made it this far,
no one's
you
talking
already
about
see what's going
Venezuela
on.
because things
The
are going
question
so
is,
well in Venezuela.
Backhand index pointing right,
But
do
it
we
really shows
continue
the commitment
fixing
that the
these
president
issues?
has to taking
Or
care
go
of
back to the
business
policies that
for
created
American
them?
interests in our
Let me
own
know what you
hemisphere.
think in
And
the
it's-
comments.
It's not limited to
And if you want more
Venezuela, it's
breakdowns like
throughout,
this, real analysis,
Central and
no
South
fluff.
America.
Make sure you
and I
like,
think that
subscribe,
you'll continue
and
to
stay
see
tuned.
continued
Because we're
progress.
just getting started.